I'm 6'4". You got about 6'7", so I'll squeeze in here. But good morning, guys. Welcome to the Nahal Show, formerly the Best of Evergreen San Jose show. I'm honored to have Mr. Funk, Chris Funk. Thank you so much for joining us and hanging out with us today. And Mr. Funk's the superintendent of Eastside Unified High School District, and honored. We were talking before, we got so much in common, but for those who don't know Mr. Funk, why don't we dive in, tell us a little bit about yourself. I usually hate that question of tell me about yourself. But first off, sir, you played college basketball like myself, went to Carroll College, but where did you grow up before that, Mr. Funk?
Yeah, Roman, I'm a native of San Jose. My parents moved to California from Ohio back in 1960, and then moved to San Jose in 64, and I was born in 66. I'm a product of San Jose Unified, Trace Elementary, Hoover, Lincoln High School.
Hoover,
okay. Yeah. And then I had a great opportunity. Then I went to Ohlone College and played junior college basketball and baseball.
Did the JUCO thing?
I did the JUCO thing, and then Carroll College in Montana. Came back, attended San Jose State to get my teaching credential and my double master's.
Did you see the Mr. Spangler that I sent out to you? He's a wrestling coach, Quimby Middle. He went to Carroll as well, played football.
That's right, yeah.
They still got a football team there?
They've won 4 national titles.
Oh.
Yeah, that's really their claim to fame.
And NAIA or they D?
They're NAIA, yeah,
okay.
Division III, yeah.
Wow. I didn't cut you off, sorry.
No, and I spent my whole career teaching and in public education. So I had the great privilege of going back and being the principal of the high school I graduated from.
That's got to be crazy.
Yeah.
When you made your stop at San Jose State, one thing we picked up on when I turned this on, and good morning everyone that's joining us, was the urban leadership program, and I think it was kind of unique times for you to be a part of that. We have Mr. Walsh on the show, and he was actually teaching that, but you talk a little bit about what that meant to you, and we're going to kind of get into that. I mean, this was an urban leadership program. It was geared more towards the occupation you were eventually going to do after, right? And my personal opinion is, we should have more feeder things in that way. What made you jump on that? And did you already have it figured out that I'm gonna want to go into administration? I want to become an educator.
Well, I knew I was going to be an educator straight out of college. Both my parents are educators. My mom taught kindergarten for 35 years, and my dad was a high school English drama teacher, high school basketball coach for 35 years. And so I taught for 9 years. And I had no intention of going into administration, but my wife was pregnant with our second child. She wanted to stay home for a year and go back to San Jose State and get her master's, and I had an opportunity to move into administration, and I really thought I was only going to do that for a year or two,
right?
And I'd go right
figure
back,
things out.
Yeah, and I'd go right back into teaching and coaching. But once I got the bug, once I got the administrative job, I got the bug, and I got promoted quickly. The first year I was activities, the next year I was in charge of instruction, and within 5 years I was the principal. And once you have that opportunity to lead a large organization,
right,
it's kind of hard to go back.
Yeah, no, and it's made for certain leaders and so forth, right?
And so the urban leadership program, I was actually an administrator in that program, earning my credential. I was the only one. Everyone else were teachers still teaching in the classroom.
Right.
So that was a challenge too, because it's theory applied to the real life experience.
What are the biggest differences? I mean, when you're a teacher, you're following a certain curriculum. When you're doing this and jumping in for administration, we were kind of making up the curriculum as you go. It's more structured, more organizational, more delegation of responsibility. What would you say is?
Yeah, when you're a teacher, you're the king of your kingdom, right?
Right.
You go
right.
And
of your specific subject.
Exactly. And the challenge is that teaching can be very isolating, right? Because you're in your classroom, the door, 4 walls, and you're by yourself. In administration, every decision you make, everyone in that community has something to say about it.
Right.
They're going to critique you.
I was saying to him off camera, I'm like, the more I study, the more I realize I don't want your job. It's never easy, but carry on, please.
Well, and so with administration, what I've always tried to do is what I call distributive leadership. I try to make sure that everyone has a voice. I don't claim to have all the answers,
Nobody does.
And more people in the room and you can tap that social capital, you're going to be able to find those answers, and then you have better buy-in.
Right.
But then there is a time where you have to make a decision, and sometimes those decisions don't please everyone, and that's a challenge that we face.
By buy-in, Chris, you mean everyone feels that they're involved. Everyone feels that they're a part of the process.
Absolutely.
Right? By doing
Yes.
that. I feel that's so important. Player versus coach. Before we get on to that good stuff, I learned the hard way is that being a player and being a college athlete, and then having the patience of being a coach. Really struggling with that now. What advice, would you give to them? And I know we've talked that we wish when we're all done we'll come back and start coaching again. But what was the experience like for you? That and parents.
Yeah, I right out of college, I was coaching, and I loved getting out and playing with the kids. So we would work on the drills, we would work on the fundamentals, and then when it was time to play,
you can actually show them.
I could actually show them and get out there.
Yep.
And what I realized was that I had more control as a player during the game than as a coach. Because as a coach, of course, you have the opposing players, the opposing coach, but then you have the officials, right? And as a coach, you can't control what the officials do.
That's the hardest part for me. There's other elements that are simply out of our control.
Absolutely. Right? And so I think I grew as a coach, my 10 years coaching, and then when I got into administration, I stepped down for coaching. And then when my kids entered middle school, I coached their AAU teams, and I thought I was much more calm and effective as a coach than I was when I was coaching varsity high school basketball.
Interesting, yeah.
Because I was just more mature.
Yeah, that, and so then you did the summer thing, right? And then there's not as much as the elements. AAU is a beautiful thing. I think any advice anybody who wants to play basketball, I'd always say that summers are everything.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone who relaxes in the summer and you can come back in one summer and completely transform. And
Absolutely.
That's why I want to have Mike Rutter on the show soon. He said he coached a little bit because he's doing a little one-on-one aside from San Jose City Women's College. He says hello to you as well. And then while we're on it, your son, I heard you say Monterey. Where's he at right now?
So Mike was one of the all-time great barrier shooters. He was just a great lefty.
Period.
He can shoot from distance. When we
Still
talk
can.
about
Still
Clay
can.
and Steph being shooting from distance, Mike was one of the original distance shooters. And he's worked with my youngest son. My youngest son is a sophomore, freshman eligibility at West Valley College, playing basketball, he'll earn his AA this year.
Yeah.
And my oldest just graduated from Cal State Fullerton last summer.
That's awesome. And you mentioned West Valley College. I remember when Coach Fernandez told me, Roman, you really want to test the waters? Go out to West Valley College in the summer. And it was organized. It was you bring your own five, very short. Yeah. And my college buddy's here, and it's funny because he would come too. And we were watching the Lakers last night, and Brooke Lopez was just playing, wandering around. And during that time was the summers where he and I walked in, and Brooke and his brother were there, just about to be freshmen at Stanford, right?
Great opportunity.
So it's kind of a trip to obviously iron sharpens iron, so you get to see them, but it's a trip to see people like them. My last high school game was against Jeremy Lin and Palo Alto, but then you kind of go in your mind that wow, no one's gonna believe me that we were on that level, But
was Bob Burton still the coach, or was it Danny Yoshikawa?
So Yoshikawa was running the show as an assistant at the time, which means Bob was probably the head coach, and then we just never saw him around. He had Yoshikawa. I'm sure there's rules to that. He's not allowed to be on the floor and all that kind of stuff. But, see, this is what I was afraid of. We were going to go on a tangent on basketball, but the main thing we want to talk about, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of stuff happening. I was planning on being Mr. Funk regardless, and I know it's something that are on people's mind. I almost, didn't want to bring up the elephant in the room, but my main goals, I want to talk about high school. First of all, it's such an evolving time in our life. Some people feel that, I had to learn about a parallelogram, but no one ever taught me how to do accounting or to do anything like that, right? I just want to educate everybody else and give them some value that, first of all, Mr. Funk's not where Chris is not, say all, be all. There's a board of trustees. Why don't we educate them on that too, so I can learn as well? So as far as California goes, Mr. Funk, there's yourself, superintendent, just of a specific high school district. There's the board of trustees, and then Mr. Welch was telling me about there's a state assemblyman that's in charge of education or budget, or what's your understanding of
Well, you have a state superintendent of education, and then you have a state board of education.
Right.
And they are the have total authority over the curriculum and the funding. The funding actually is through the legislature.
Okay.
But just in San Jose alone, we have 19 school districts. And so each school district
Wow.
has a superintendent, and each school district has elected officials. And so technically, I have 5 bosses. Then those are the elected officials, and I'm the primary person that they hire, and then I hire everyone below me.
Right.
And in Eastside, being a high school district, the largest high school district in Northern California, we have 7 feeder districts that feed into us. And
Middle school, high school. Middle school, elementary school districts.
And
right.
each of them have a superintendent, and
Wow.
each of them have board of trustees. So it's a very complicated system we have in California.
Right.
And then it's the state that provides our funding, and once we receive the funding, then we're responsible for balancing that budget. But we don't get to control how much funding comes into the district.
Right.
We only control once the money comes to us.
Right, right. So recommendation of them is really take a look at, who the powers be and decision makers are in state legislature and state assembly. We had former superintendent Joe Cotto we were talking about. He went up there for a little bit. No longer there? Is he still?
No, he's retired.
He's retired now. I heard amazing things about Mr. Cotto and his charisma and so forth. So I'd love to, at some point, reach out to him. I'm sure there's a lot we can learn from him. But
Second longest tenured superintendent Eastside, Joe Cotto.
Awesome.
12 years, I believe.
There's our stories, I am Mr. Welch again, just talk about how you could walk into a room of parents writing and then just give them punch and cookies and calm everybody down. He had that charisma to him, and I'm sure he did great things. But back to curriculum, how does this just gets handed down to you of, okay, we just got rid of the high school exit exam, right? People were for it, people were against it, didn't think it was a great idea, but it's such a tough position because you're never going to please everybody, right? How are these decisions made for those that argue, why am I learning Algebra 2 and so forth? Why is this not specific to my occupation and so forth? How do amendments to curriculums and so forth get thrown out and thrown in? Is this all happening back at this level we just talked about, or?
Yeah, really, curriculum is designed and developed at the state level,
Okay.
but locally, schools can take the standards that are adopted by the state and then develop curriculum around those standards. Unfortunately, in California, it's always tied to, and the federal government, it's always tied to some standardized test at the end of the year.
Right, because there's got to be something. Even though high school exit exam is now gone, we still got SATs in order to get into college.
Yeah.
And those
Absolutely.
sorts of things. So
there's got to be a balance between what is required to get into college and what is meaningful for kids in learning, right? And that's why in Eastside we have 19 different career pathways that are tied to career technical education. But I agree, there needs to be much more flexibility. We should have seminar classes that maybe are 6 to 8 weeks long on financial literacy, on your application process to college, financial aid, things that keep kids interested in school.
Right.
Because right now, a lot of kids are interested simply because of the extracurricular activities. But we've got to do a much better job making the curriculum more hands-on and meaningful for our students.
Right.
I agree with you.
Yeah, no, one thing I want to bring up, you're probably not familiar with this, but it's a case study that was done in Finland. There's things I agree with, things that I disagree with. I mean, we're dealing with the entire United States. Finland's a little easier to control, and those are at different levels, but I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but they believe that increasing more recess time, or pretty much starting school a little later in the day, or having shorter times, and the biggest thing was they eliminated homework, and they went from being one of the last places in the nation to being at the very top, actually being number one.
Yeah.
But this was at a whole different world at elementary level versus high school level, and it's a weird conundrum. We got parents working all day. They might be angry that they just got to pick up their kid, right? Daycare is a huge issue. What are your thoughts about that? And I'm not sure if you got a chance to even look into that.
Well, context is everything, right? So when you look at Finland, you're looking at a very homogeneous state.
True.
You don't have the English learners that we have. The cost of living is outrageous here compared to there. So you have parents here that are working 2-3 jobs just to survive. And so maybe some parents, even though in their hearts they want the very best for their child, they may not be there to observe and support them with their homework.
Right.
But there are things that I like about the Finland education. And for instance, teachers spend 51% of their time with their colleagues developing their content knowledge.
Versus grading.
Correct.
Right.
Now, kids are in school longer day.
Right.
They may start later, but they're
Right.
in school longer. But a teacher doesn't have a caseload of 150, 160 kids that they see 5 days a week for at least an hour a day. And I think that's huge. I think we need to reduce the caseload for teachers so that they can spend more time on their content and their pedagogy. But kids need to be given other opportunities at learning. And I don't think you need to see your English teacher every single day to become an effective writer or reader. I don't think you need to see your math teacher every single day, because that just tends to lead to the drill and kill that you and I went through in math.
Right.
So I think there's things we can learn from Finland, but context is always very important.
Here's one actually I'm thinking a lot about is public versus private and how much that's a concern. I think we went to Oak Grove. We remember Oak Grove for what it was. And I was talking to Coach Fernandez about it, and he mentioned to me that there were always D1, obviously by D1 meaning population of school. And they were talking about the fact that they've seen such small amounts. It's my personal opinion that Quimby and Shibuya has the greatest athletes that ever lived. As far as those are two middle schools that feeder athletes. On a sports take, as soon as they're any good, we all know that they get snatched up by West Catholic Athletic League, Midi, Bellarmine, and I don't mean snatched up at their own will, of course. Who wouldn't want a private school education for their kids? But I start to think the more and more that I see, I went to Pala Middle School, like in these, and now it's called Escuela Popular. It's this private firm. We're seeing more and more of these privates. What are your personal opinions on that? The future, that if things do continue to go private with time, what's going to happen to public? And I'm wondering if those decision makers in their minds are blowing off public and then thinking, oh well, their kids are probably in private school, right?
Yeah.
They're thinking, well, it's all going to go private anyways. But budget's not important for these schools. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, so there are two systems outside of the public education. There's public charter schools, and then there's private schools. And typically, parents tend to send their kids to private schools because they're parochial, and they want that religious factor, which is understandable. But my point is that if you're willing to send your child to Bellarmine or to Harker for high school at $22,000 a year, and the state funds us at $10,000 a year per child, there's a discrepancy there, right? Yeah. And so you're not just paying for a smaller class size, you're paying for what it takes to really educate your child. And more power to you. But then the state needs to fund public schools so that we can offer some of the things that a smaller private high school can offer. And then with charters, since they are public schools, they're draining resources from schools. So we have 12 charters in Eastside, and it's about 4,000 students. So 4,000 times 10,000 per person, that's how much money is leaving. About $15 million is leaving our system to go to the charter schools in Eastside.
Well, and I'm sure, in your Huddle Up groups, have you guys been talking about ways to counter this? It made me proud on YouTube to randomly see Eastside Union High School District kind of commercial and kind of talking about why you should attend. I'm not sure if it was Andrew Hill or Santa Teresa or so forth. And the reality is you guys got to compete. Yeah. And you're competing, and then I'm talking to some of these teachers, and they're like, we already have $2 per kid for as far as pencils and those type of things for them. Given you guys have your own budget, now you have to give up a portion to actually market and compete with these, right?
We are marketing now. We've never done it before.
In the history of time, right?
Exactly. It shows, public schools usually don't do that.
Yeah, it shows how the evolution of times and how things are changing. It was very interesting to me, right? So I'm just grabbing my laptop. how are we tackling that?
Well, I've hired...
As if you don't have enough to do.
I've hired from the private sector a director of marketing, and that's her background, that's her degree. And so for the last 2.5, 3 years, we've been marketing in cinema, in the theaters. We've been doing Pandora, YouTube. We've been sending postcards home. We do brochures.
It's better than some franchises I've been yelling at and trying to consult them. And first off, for something like this, you know, if Chris wanted to, he would just send this marketing director to me. So I'm super grateful and thankful that you took the time to do this, because we get this insight, you know. But Karen, that's kind of been the marketing strategy, right? And
absolutely.
Especially
we revamped all of our websites,
right.
And it's also about customer service.
Right.
We just got to get better.
Yep.
Because public schools, traditionally, the kids came to us no matter what. Now there's competition, so we've got to improve our customer service.
Right. And then with teachers, the one thing is that I've actually liked is they've always been kind of incentivized for the longer you stay there, the longer your pay scale kind of goes, right? And I feel that's a positive thing, that, you know, huge raises don't do as much. They kind of incentivize things for you. How have you guys dealt with that? One thing we were talking about was on Nextdoor. I think it was 2 nights ago, that it's so tough when you're the person in charge and you're the boss on where to cut what and how to prioritize money. But there was some talks about I think it was counselors, as well as budget cuts, and you guys are already doing things, I think during my day, doing furloughs and stuff like that to try to save money way back in the day, right? I mean, were furloughs a way to correct me if I'm wrong?
They were back during the recession. Yeah.
Okay. Got
we
it.
don't do furlough days anymore.
Okay. Wonderful. That's got to be the toughest part of your job. They were talking about some type of meetings going on as far as school counselors, which I can understand the outreach, because it's so important that kids understand the CSU and UC requirements and how to do all that. I mean, some of the claims were they're already overloaded X amount of students to one. Now one may or may not have to be plucked. You chose a really easy job.
Well, so I'm in completing my 6th year as superintendent.
Right.
The first 5 years, our teachers have had 5 straight years of pay raises. And we hired over 205 new employees in the last 5 years. But now the state funding has ended. So all of a sudden, the funding now is just COLA. And COLA does not cover step and column on the salary schedule, STRS and PERS, which is retirement, and health benefits. And so when you have less revenue coming in from the state and your expenses continue to climb, unfortunately, we have to look at potential layoffs. And so last June, when the board approved our 3-year budget, and we always have to submit a 3-year budget to the county, and at any point of those 3 years, you have to have a minimum of a 3% reserve. And typically, your reserve is the lowest that 3rd year out. And we were showing a $27 million deficit in the 3rd year. And so in order to eliminate that, you either have to find savings, negotiate savings, whatever that may be, class size, what have you, benefits, or you have to do layoffs. And so the board said that we're going to do layoffs, but not about programs. So we're not cutting electives like art, music. We're cutting non-classroom personnel, the support structure. So who are they? They're advisors, they're counselors, they're instructional coaches. And so that's not easy, because we've built
Everyone matters, right?
Yeah, and we've built that since I've been there. In fact, we have 2 more counselors today than we had in 2007. That's how many counselors we've hired in the last 5 years. And now we're potentially looking at those layoffs. And so that's why I've been having meetings at every single school site since September to inform them of what's going on and to ask for their input on what's their priority and some options. And so the board just the other night passed a resolution to put a partial tax on. And East Side has been great. Our community's been great supporting our bonds, but we've never been able to pass a parcel. And that's going to be critical. That's going to be on the June election.
There you go. What recommendation do you give to those parents or people listening who want to get involved, or and they have every right to talk about their personal opinion and so forth. Are there certain meetings or anything that's going to be going on to discuss these issues where they can voice their personal opinions and get feedback?
Absolutely. So they can email myself and board members,
Okay.
and then the next board meeting is Monday the 26th.
Okay.
And that's when the board will make their final decision.
Right. And then so population's going to go up, right? Evergreen, how are you guys going to deal with the factor of knowing when an additional school, like perfect example, Morgan Hill, it was always just Live Oak, and now
Right.
we got Sobrato, right? Or we created Evergreen because Mount Pleasant and Silver Creek were overflowing, and now Evergreen's overflowing, right?
Yeah, it is. It was built for 1600 originally.
Right, and how does one deal with the next step, or even recognize the need? Then we'd have to go back to upstairs and request that and
Yeah. So
address that.
we've done 2 demographic studies in the last 5 years,
Got it.
and the reason why we have deficits and we're looking at layoffs is because we're in declining enrollment actually. And so in the next,
Interesting. I mean, population's going up, but enrollment's declining, and the answer to that is what we brought up earlier: public versus private, right? If you put your
Right.
finger on it.
Yeah. Well, that, and so just in the east side zip codes, the birth rate's going down right now, actually. Even though California population is going up, in the Bay Area, just swarming with people.
Very interesting.
But so the birth rate's going down, and then what you also have is you have empty nesters. Like my wife and I, both of our kids are out of high school. We're not quite ready to retire.
Right.
Do we sell our house for 1.3 million, buy a condo for $1 million? No one's going to do that. We're going to wait till we're ready to retire and move out. And so what's happening
So they're
is
sitting still.
they're sitting still.
Yeah.
Our communities are aging out, but there's no inventory.
Interesting.
And then when there is, it's usually families that are just starting off in condos, townhouses, and it's going to take 8-9 years for those kids to get to us. So our high, 26,000, we're currently at 23,000, and it shows in the next 8 years, we're going to be down at 18,000 students. So even Evergreen is projected to drop from 2,800 to 2,000.
Wow, interesting,
Yeah.
interesting. And I'm 30 years old, right? And my wife married 1 year, and my wife's saying, "Oh, let's hold on a little bit." So
You gotta start working, man.
Yeah, no, and she's at UCSF with babies every day, but I think that kind of answers the question with the mindset becomes, people are waiting a lot earlier
They're
to
waiting.
have kids and so forth.
And they tend to only have 1 or 2.
So specialization, that's one thing I wanted to kind of talk about. We're seeing more in the middle school, seeing more technology stuff for those parents who are listening out there. Another reason why you should have your kids go to Eastside Union High School District. What kind of things are you guys putting forward? I'm completely ignorant to STEM. I heard that word thrown out there a lot. What is STEM for parents that don't know?
STEM is just abbreviation for science, technology, math, and engineering. And so the goal is to make sure that you have the pathway for kids to take math all the way up to calculus their senior year, that you have the ability for engineering classes, that pathway, multiple science classes, that pathway. And so typically your middle schools are not that strong in their science program, and we really need to move that down. Fortunately, our community passed an EdTech bond, so every 5 years we sell a series of bonds that we pay off, and we can refresh our technology that way. So instead of using bond money to finance a computer for 30 years, and the lifespan is 4 years, we now can refresh those every 4 to 5 years and make sure that our kids and our students have the best technology.
That's awesome. And then robotics, things of that nature, classes are all going to be a part of those type of things.
Yeah, so right now robotics are mostly just clubs, and that's the problem, is there's not a set curriculum or funding from the state, and so sites typically have to fundraise for that. Those kids are amazing what they put together with these robotic competitions.
Yeah.
And the volunteers from the community that support us.
very cool.
But it's all fundraising. And that weighs on people, right? You want to get in there and teach and work with the kids. You don't want to have to worry about fundraising to actually go off to the tournaments that take place.
I took a tour with Mrs. Kelly, Lauren Kelly. She's awesome, and she was giving me a tour of everything. And then she goes, and this is the mental health counselor. I'm like, oh, I'm only 10 years out. We didn't have no mental health counselor,
Right.
right? And she said, no, that's very important. And, you know, we all have problems the same way we do. I just wanted to get your personal opinions, your thought on, you know, the state of kids. We have bullying becomes an issue, but now we're always evolving, right? Now we have cyber bullying, right? And
Yeah.
so forth. Does that come up at the table at all? And you know, how do you tackle like something like that? I mean, that's a little different than an advisor, an academic counselor. I mean, this has got to be probably a psychologist, right,
Yeah,
of some sort.
absolutely. They have their clinical technician.
Is that standard in all 18 now?
We have a full-time social worker at every high school, and they have anywhere from 2 to 5 interns from San Jose State working towards their credential.
That's a
Yeah,
great
their license.
idea. Bring the interns in because they're getting real life,
Absolutely.
right then and there, right?
Yeah.
And,
You know, we have a lot of kids that are stressed. More and more kids have thought about suicide in the last 5 years than ever before. The pressures on our students are just tremendous. I mean, like I said, I grew up in San Jose. I remember when the orchards were here. I remember I could leave at 7 in the morning and not come home until dinner time. And my parents were okay with that. You can't do that nowadays with the
Right.
traffic, with the crime, with just all the pressures that we have on our kids. And,
Right.
and they need that support.
Right.
It's that social emotional learning that's critical.
No, I think it's so important. I'm so happy you guys are doing that. I'm throwing all the crazy ones at you, and I appreciate you're taking them like a champ. But you just said crime. One thing that really, you know, angered me.
Yeah.
Okay, so that goes to show it's not just public schools. We're just talking about Harker, but 6 a.m. You know, a criminal comes in class, and you can look up the story for the rest. That's probably the most difficult challenge, and that's been the aura we were talking about earlier. Was people in Parkland hadn't trained for an active shooter situation. I've been out since 2005, and I remember specifically us training for
Yep.
active shooter situations, barricading the door. So it's very cool to see that. If something like this happens, how do you guys put in systems in place for those parents? Because if I could choose one thing, probably for your son as well, it's safety, right?
Absolutely.
And we were talking before, but how do you not get to the point of having metal detectors, right? But also figuring things out. So there's code levels. I heard the word code red thrown around for parents that don't know. That immediately tells a teacher to what level to react and do certain scenarios.
Yeah, I mean the training has evolved and changed depending on whether you're SJPD, the Sheriff's Department, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, a code red means that there is an active shooter on campus, and that means that if you're in your classroom, you should lock that classroom and move away from the doors and windows.
Right.
And if you have
And not let anybody in, even including students at that time, because those students should be in their own respective classroom. That's the tough part, right?
Yeah, but if you see a student walking by when you're trying to lock the door, let that student
Common
in.
sense, yeah.
But the new training also says that if you have the ability to run and leave, to do that. And it also talks about if you can't run, you can't hide, then fight. But ideally, you don't want to take on a person that has a handgun or a rifle. You want to get out of the area,
Or
and you
give them
can't
what they
get
want in
out.
that moment to make sure I be safe. Survival is priority.
Survival is
right?
priority. Yeah, and as a former high school principal, every single day my number one priority was the safety of that campus, of the students and the faculty. And you know, I believe in humanity, and I believe in open access. I don't want metal detectors. I don't want fencing all around my camp. I want to be inclusive. I want it to be welcoming.
It should be a safe zone.
We
right?
all just have to be vigilant. All
Right.
eyes have to be open on that.
What did you think about this, Chris? And we're not going to go down the road of gun control and that whole thing, but I was looking at the January 1st laws that came into place, and one of them were the fact that nobody on campus, even if they have a license to carry a gun, no teacher. Some teachers might feel, well, Chris, I'm keeping one on me in my desk in case something happens. Then the decision was made on the California level that teachers should not be able to do that. And some people had their opinions, were like, well, they can stop someone. And then on the other side, no, they shouldn't need to because, there will be police officers, on campuses. So is one typically assigned per school, two?
Yeah, so we do have a budget that allocates for a full-time police officer to be on every site every single day.
Right.
The problem is we haven't had officers for almost 2.5, 3 years
Wow.
because the level the SJPD has dropped
They had
significantly.
cuts too. They had huge cuts.
And so as they're building their staff back up, we'll have more officers coming back, because right now the officers that are there are mandatory overtime behind the wheel. Well, if your day off, you're now working overtime behind the wheel, you're not going to be working at the school.
Right.
And really, officers are simply there to keep bad people off the campus,
Right.
and to build relationships. That's really the two roles that they do.
Right.
I don't want teachers, I don't want staff members carrying guns, because first and foremost, you're not trained.
Yep.
You know, just going to a shooting range and firing your gun every so often doesn't make you a competent person to handle.
Or you
a
walk
gun.
out into the bathroom, now you got live ammo on your desk, and some kid gets a hold of it.
Absolutely.
I could see that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So I'm not for that at all. In
Right.
fact, if that ever would happen, I would get out of education, because
Right.
that's an accident waiting to happen.
Right. I can completely see that, and I agree. And you got so many kids around; it's hard enough watching all of them.
No, right.
Let them know, you know.
And no matter how tragic Sandy Hook was, this latest one in Florida,
Right.
they're all tragic.
Yeah.
But when you think about how many schools there are across the United States,
That's a great
it
point.
really doesn't happen that often.
Right.
And so let's not overreact.
Right.
But it's just, let's hope a school never has to face that.
Right. I completely agree. And then with social media, with all this today, when something does happen, it's personified, right, on another level, and that's honestly, I feel, is a root of the problem. Is kind of, I don't let my parents watch local news. I would switch it off with them, but sometimes the theme seems to be fear, right? We're in fear of our neighbors. It's killer bees. It's H1N1. It's flu vaccine.
It's what sells.
This happens. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And that correlation, I think it's way more important to have podcasts like this, when you can learn so much more of how to make change, you know?
Yeah.
I think, last thing, we covered everything on the top of my head, but for those who don't know, California, first year JC free, right? Did you hear about that?
If you qualify.
If you qualify.
It's based on, free and reduced lunch. So it's not 100%.
Interesting.
Anyone goes for free.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's
And
kind of the sliding scale
Yep.
concept.
And this is out of your realm, but then we've seen, if you're a New York resident, college all 4 years in New York is officially free. I'm not sure if that had its own stipulations too, or I could be mistaken. It was somewhere else, Tennessee.
Yeah.
Do you feel that that should be the case? You're not a dean yet.
Yeah, I would first say that college is not for everyone,
Right.
but the right to go to college is for everyone, right? It should be a personal decision and based on your performance. There shouldn't be any adult in the system that says you should go and you shouldn't. It should be based on your performance. However, before they pay for college for everyone, let's fully fund public K-12 education.
No well said. And we don't realize it, and your son will later, even being into college athletics. I think the biggest thing is when I got out and I realized my brother and sister, what kind of loans they had on their head.
Yeah.
And I was just so grateful to have a clean slate right there. But they're amazing, Mr. Funk. I'm so happy. This has nothing to do with these other topics. This is kind of just about Mr. Funk Rapid Fire. I do the same questions with everybody that I wanted to just ask you. I'll just pick a few from then. We'll start off with what obsessions you explore on the evenings and weekends. You kind of told me about that. You woke up, already swam a bunch of laps lately, and then doing some yoga too. So
I do yoga on the weekends, and I love going to the beach, particularly get a beach workout and take my dog there.
Super active. I love it. So that would probably be part of your morning rituals. Here's one. If you could give any advice, you can throw in the Chris time machine. You go back, you get to see Chris at 20, 25, 30.
Yeah.
You're only allowed to say one thing to him and give him some advice. Looking back, what would you say to him? What piece of advice would you give him?
Compound interest. Understand it and start putting money away early. Even if it's just $20 a month.
Albert Einstein said it was the greatest mathematical invention ever created was compounding interest, right?
Absolutely.
That's a good one. That's the first one. This one's really important to me was how was a failure, or what seemed like at the time was a huge failure, and you're down on yourself, that actually set you up for later success? There was a blessing in disguise that kind of veered you one way. I feel like everybody's got one. I feel like those are so important. They should be not looked at, and that goes back to that anxiety. All these kids are screwed. They're worried about messing up. When
Absolutely.
You gotta mess up to learn. Like I was joking around, but I'm like, Coach, I've never seen them making so many missed layups. They make all their threes, but now when it comes to any anxiety thing of failure, it's like. But what would be yours you can remember on the trail back that?
Oh, very vivid. It was my senior year in college. I had a run-in with my coach. It didn't go well, and I still remember being released with 8 games left. Not released from the team, but no longer playing, no longer traveling with the team. Right. I still had my scholarship and what have you.
This is at Carroll?
This was at Carroll, my senior year.
Similar story.
And so for the longest time, I had that chip on my shoulder when I left college. And I think that's why I probably was a little too intense as a high school coach early on in my career. And I think people just have to forgive themselves. Right. You know, I held a lot of anger over that. And then a lot of that anger is just myself, because I had never played sports my entire life.
Always been the man. Never had a coach cut you off like that.
Yeah, and I own some of that too. And so I think we have to be able to slow down, take a breath, reflect, and forgive. And drop
our own egos. I feel ego's a killer of all relationships, and we all have it.
Yep.
And being able to find that, I've talked about it before, but it's funny is I totally forgave Rudder on this. Tore my knee up the second time. I'm still at Notre Dame, and all of a sudden, this culture money just wasn't there. And that wasn't on Rudder. That was on Puo. So I was so down on myself. I'm going to Arizona State. Forget all this. And then Coach Fernandez was the one that chewed me out, and I got an opportunity at San Francisco State, and he said, "You better take that, right? You're gonna regret it for the rest of your life."
Right.
Even though my mindset, I was over the politics of basketball, and then it ended up veering me on this course of just being the best shape of my life. The amazing people I met at San Francisco State, and sometimes screwing up is not the end of everything, right?
No, absolutely not.
It's a great thing. Your favorite quote? What's one quote? I'm sure there's a lot that you live by often.
Oh, I grew up being a John Wooden fan, and so in basketball it was always. What's that?
It's like Coach Fernandez is huge on John Wooden.
So in basketball it was be quick, don't hurry. But in life, success is a peace of mind knowing that you did the very best that you're capable of doing. Trying to accomplish your goal.
I love it. That was one of my favorites of his, and he talks about the little things. Focus on the little things. The little things make big things happen. And John Wooden was an amazing guy. If you guys don't know who he is, look him up. The UCLA coach, probably one of the all-time greatest championships, but more importantly, a great leader. I think.
I was just going to say the other thing he talked about was preparation, hard work, trumps talent.
Always, right?
Yep.
That's everything. Amazing. Any last requests from my audience, or where can we find you, or any maybe parents or something like that who what do you recommend? They shoot you an email or something?
Absolutely. Email is probably the best way, because I respond to all my emails I try to respond to all my emails within 24 hours. And visit our website and learn all the great programs that we have on Eastside, and any questions that you have. And I'm also willing to meet with small groups too, that if there's a group of parents, associations that want to get together and learn more about Eastside, love to do it.
Mr. Funk, thank you so much. I think this is insane value. Don't wait to go on the podcast as well, but we really appreciate you're super busy and stuff. And
hey, my pleasure.
Means
Thank
a lot
you
to me. I'm sure they'll appreciate it.
Thanks for giving back to the community.
Awesome. Take care, guys.